Okay, so imagine this. You're about to head into this meeting, right? And everyone's talking about like the future of air travel. Like, how are we going to fly in the future? You want to sound like you know what's up.
Yeah.
But who actually has the time to read all those crazy long articles and research papers?
Right.
So that's where this deep dive comes in. We're going to break down a NASA article. It was published like yesterday, December 15th, 2024. And it's about how NASA is working to make supersonic flights a lot quieter.
Much quieter.
Yeah. You heard that right. They're testing out some really cool technology that could seriously change how we fly.
Yeah.
No more of those like crazy window rattling sonic booms. Just quiet little thumps instead. Can you imagine?
It's pretty amazing.
It'll be incredible. To help us unpack all the technical details, we've got our expert here ready to walk us through it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So before we get into like all the specifics, can you give us like the 10,000-foot view?
Sure.
What's the problem they're trying to solve? And what is NASA's, master plan here?
So supersonic flight over land is actually banned right now. And the reason is those ear-splitting sonic booms that they create.
Right.
You just can't have those happening over populated areas.
Oh.
So NASA's goal is pretty ambitious. They basically want to change those regulations by making supersonic flight so quiet that it's just acceptable to fly over land.
Now that would be a total game changer. And they're doing all this with like a special experimental aircraft, right? The X-59.
That's right.
Okay.
The X-59. It's designed to minimize the sonic booms, turn them into quieter thumps.
Right.
And it's really clever how they're achieving this. The shape of the X-59 is unlike any other aircraft. It's specifically made to, manipulate the shock waves that actually cause those sonic booms.
Okay. So it's not just about going fast. It's about shaping the sound.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But how do they actually know if it's working? I mean, how do they measure these quieter thumps?
So that's where this incredible tool called the shock sensing probe comes in.
It's interesting.
It's essentially a highly sensitive microphone, but designed specifically for measuring those shock waves.
Hold on. A microphone for shock waves? That sounds like super high tech.
It is. This probe is attached to an F-15B aircraft.
Oh, wow.
That flies alongside the X-59.
Okay.
Gathering data on the sound waves as they're generated.
Wait, so they have two planes flying in formation, one making the sound and the other one measuring it.
Exactly.
That seems pretty complex. Why not just, have the sensors on the X-59 itself?
That's a great question. They actually use two different versions of this probe.
Okay.
One measures the shock waves close to the X-59, so you get that initial, source reading. But the other one is positioned further away, measuring those shock waves as they travel towards the ground. So this two-probe system allows them to really track how the sound changes and how it weakens over distance.
So it's like having a close-up and a wide-angle shot of the sound at the same time.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that since the X-59's shock waves are supposed to be so much weaker than traditional sonic booms, this probe has to be, incredibly sensitive.
Right. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It needs to be able to detect these subtle pressure changes with incredible accuracy. It's got this cone-shaped design with 5 pressure ports along its surface. And these ports are capturing thousands of pressure readings.
Wow.
Every second.
Really?
So it's painting this detailed picture of those shock waves.
That's a lot of data. What do they actually do with all those pressure readings?
All that data is really crucial for validating their computer models.
Okay, yeah.
They need to make sure that the X-59 is performing as quietly as they predicted.
Right.
And this probe provides the hard evidence.
Yeah.
They're not just hoping for quiet, they're actually measuring it.
Right, they're backing up their claims with solid data.
Exactly.
That's impressive. I also read that they moved some of the probe's components to get even more precise measurements.
Yeah, they moved the pressure transducers, which are the components that actually measure the air pressure closer to those pressure ports. This reduces signal loss and gives even more accurate readings.
Wow. They're not messing around.
No, they're really pushing the limits here.
It sounds like they've thought of everything to make sure they're getting the best data possible. But, I'm curious, are there any, external factors that could affect the probe's readings? What about weather or something?
So one of the biggest challenges is actually temperature. Temperature fluctuations can significantly impact the accuracy.
Okay.
So they had to engineer a solution for that.
Okay, so how did they solve that problem? Did they, like, wrap the probe in a blanket or something?
Not quite. They developed a really sophisticated heating system that's integrated into the probe itself. This maintains a consistent temperature throughout the flight, making sure that those readings are as accurate as possible.
Now that's thinking ahead. So they have this incredibly sensitive probe attached to a separate chase plane.
Right.
All to measure these super quiet shockwaves. It's clear that NASA is going all in on this.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm really curious about is what this all means for, like, the future of air travel.
Yeah.
What are the implications if they actually pull this off?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. If NASA can prove that the X-59 is quiet enough to fly over land, it could revolutionize air travel.
Wow.
Imagine being able to cross the country or even the ocean in a fraction of the time it takes now.
Yeah, that's a future I can get behind.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's a lot more to this story than just the technology.
Oh, absolutely.
What about things like regulations and, the environmental impact?
You're hitting on some key points there, and those are exactly the questions that we'll be exploring as we continue this deep dive.
All right, let's dive in.
It's true. The technology is just one piece of the puzzle. There are definitely broader implications to think about, especially when it comes to the environment.
Right, because even if these new planes are super quiet, they're still going to be burning a ton of fuel.
Exactly.
And we all know what that means for the planet.
Yeah, fuel consumption and emissions are a major concern, especially with climate change and everything.
Right.
So finding ways to make supersonic flight more fuel efficient and sustainable, that's going to be crucial.
So it's like they're trying to solve two huge problems at once.
Yeah.
Quieting the boom and reducing emissions.
It is a big challenge.
Yeah, that sounds pretty tough.
But, I'm pretty confident that the engineers and scientists are up to the task.
Yeah?
Especially with all the advancements we're seeing in things like alternative fuels and aerodynamic design.
Okay.
NASA's already exploring these issues as part of their research.
That's good to hear. But let's be realistic for a second.
Sure.
Even if they figure out the noise and emissions, wouldn't supersonic flights still be crazy expensive?
Yeah, that's a valid point. The development and production of these aircraft is going to take massive investments.
Right.
Which will probably lead to high ticket prices, at least initially.
So it seems like in the beginning, at least, supersonic travel would be more of a luxury thing.
Probably.
Not something most people could afford.
That's true. But it's important to remember that most new technologies start out that way. Over time, as production gets more efficient and demand grows, prices tend to come down.
Right.
Think about how much cheaper air travel is today compared to 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. It's amazing how much things have changed. Maybe supersonic flights could follow a similar path?
It's definitely possible, especially if we push to make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah, not just a privilege for the wealthy.
Exactly.
That would be incredible. To be able to jet across the country or even to another continent in a fraction of the time.
Imagine the possibilities.
Yeah, business trips could be so much quicker. Families could visit each other more easily.
Yeah.
International travel would be transformed.
It'd be amazing.
Okay, I'm getting excited about this.
Yeah.
But there's one thing we haven't talked about. Infrastructure.
Oh, right.
If these quieter supersonic planes actually become a thing, are our airports even ready for them?
That's a great question, and one that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
Airports would definitely need some major upgrades to handle these new types of aircraft.
Yeah.
Longer runways, specialized maintenance facilities, updates to air traffic control.
It's a whole ecosystem that needs to be prepared.
It is.
Wow, that sounds like a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if it's even worth all the effort.
It's a big undertaking, no doubt. But if the demand is there and the benefits are clear, I think we can overcome these challenges. Think about other huge projects we've done in the past, like the interstate highway system or global communication networks.
I guess when there's enough will and resources, we can achieve incredible things.
Exactly. And when you think about the potential benefits of supersonic travel, faster travel times, global connectivity, economic growth, it seems like a vision worth striving for.
Okay, you've convinced me. Let's say all these pieces fall into place.
Okay.
The technology works, the regulations change, we solve the environmental concerns, the infrastructure is ready.
Yeah.
What would a world with widespread supersonic travel actually look like?
That's the question that really gets me thinking. A world with readily available supersonic travel would be a world where distances shrink and time expands. Imagine flying from New York to London in under 3 hours.
Wow. Or LA to Tokyo in just a few hours.
Exactly. Think about the impact on international business, scientific collaboration, cultural exchange, even family vacations.
Right.
The world would feel so much smaller and more connected.
I can see it now. People hopping on a supersonic jet for a weekend trip to Europe or Asia.
Yeah.
Business deals being struck across continents in hours. Families reuniting frequently.
It's a future full of possibilities.
It really is.
Yeah.
And who knows what other innovations might come out of it. Maybe we'll see advancements in telepresence technology, virtual reality travel experiences, or even whole new industries we haven't even imagined yet.
That's what's so exciting about it.
Okay, I'm on board the supersonic train. This all sounds amazing, but let's take a step back for a second.
Okay.
Are there any downsides or challenges we haven't thought about yet?
That's a great point. We've been focusing on the positives, but it's important to consider the potential downsides too. Let's explore some of those challenges.
All right, so before we were getting pretty excited there about the possibilities.
Yeah.
But you brought up some downsides or challenges we need to consider. What are some of those potential hiccups?
Well, one area that could be tricky is the whole regulatory landscape. Even if NASA proves the technology works and it's quiet getting approval for commercial supersonic flights over land, that's a whole other challenge.
I bet governments and aviation authorities, they're going to want to be totally sure.
Yeah.
Before they allow something like this, what kind of hoops do they have to jump through?
It's not just about proving the tech is good.
Right.
They'll have to show it meets noise regulations, address environmental concerns, make sure it's safe for passengers and people on the ground.
Wow.
It's a really long and complicated process.
It sounds like a huge coordination effort.
It is.
But even if they manage to get through all that, couldn't there be pushback from communities? Like people who might live under the flight paths?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. People don't always like change.
Right.
Especially when it's something that feels disruptive, like planes flying overhead.
I get it.
So public perception and community engagement are going to be really important.
Yeah, they've got to get people on board.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not just about building a better plane, it's about building trust.
Right.
That makes sense. But what about the money? Could supersonic travel actually be profitable for airlines?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
The initial costs are going to be high, so ticket prices would probably have to be high too.
Right.
The question is, will enough people be willing to pay extra for faster travel?
I guess it depends on who's flying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah?
Like business travelers might be willing to spend more to save time. But what about families or people going on vacation?
That's true. It'll probably start as a niche market, catering to those who really value speed.
Gotcha.
But as the tech improves and costs come down, it could become more mainstream.
Right. Like anything else, early adopters pay a premium and then it becomes more affordable.
Exactly.
But isn't there a risk of creating like a two-tiered system where only rich people can fly supersonic?
Yeah, that's a valid concern, something we should definitely be thinking about.
Right. We don't want to repeat the inequalities we see in other areas.
Absolutely.
Okay. But let's be optimistic for a minute.
Okay.
What if supersonic travel is not only possible, also affordable and accessible to everyone?
Yeah.
What kind of impact could that have?
Well, it'd be pretty amazing. A world where people can travel across continents in a few hours?
Right.
It would totally change how we live and work and connect with each other.
Think about it. International business, scientific collaboration, cultural exchange, family vacations.
Yeah.
The world would feel much smaller.
Absolutely.
It's like something from science fiction.
It is.
But it's important to remember that technology is a tool. It's up to us how we use it.
I agree completely. As we move into this new era of supersonic travel, we need to consider not just the technology, but also the ethical and environmental and societal impacts.
It's a big conversation we need to have.
It is.
Well, this deep dive into quieter supersonic flight has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey into the future of air travel. Keep your eyes on the skies, because things are about to get a lot faster.